At Mental for Moto, our mission is to give the unsung heroes of Aussie motocross a voice. From grassroots racing right through to the biggest events in the country, sharing the stories you won't hear anywhere else. If you're interested in the advertising packages that we have available, or just want to show your support, please check out our website, www.mentalformoto.com, and we can tailor a package to suit your needs. Now, let's get on with the show.
There were times I was lost, dark had fear, couldn't see through the rain. In the end it was clear, hit the fan. I was more than one man who was there to lend a hand. Together we'd stand, always had my back, my guardian soldier. Team put together, united we conquer. Blessed is he who in the name of charity carry me when I'm weak straight through the valley of darkness. Pitch blackness, the heartless, regardless, fear couldn't part us. Thick and thin, there by my side. At times we collide, but in the end we ride. Thick and thin, there by my side. At times we collide, but in the end we ride. We ride, ride.
Welcome back, Moto fans. Today we have got another awesome guest for you guys. Before we get into it, a big thank you to our partners for this episode: Fastline Suspension, Southeast Pools, Iro Helmets, Wolf Building Compliance, Ultimate Toy Haulers, and the February sponsor of the Mental for Moto Motocross and Supercross wall calendars, available on the Mental for Moto website now, O'Donnell Motorcycles. Okay, our guest today has been busy building engines and setting up suspension for riders and teams in preparation for the race season, and if that isn't enough, he has also just launched his own race team. It's my pleasure to welcome Matt Boyd to the podcast.
Thanks for having me.
No, it's good to have you on. Mate, I touched on it in the intro, but you must be a bit of a glutton for punishment with everything that you've got going on.
Yeah, I guess you don't get involved in this industry unless you love it, do you?
That's it. You got to have a passion, I think.
Yeah, the only way to exceed in the motorcycle industry is to love it and really want to be here.
Definitely. So we'll start off with Boyd's Moto Surgery, which I think is your bread and butter. Tell me a little bit about that side of what you do.
Yeah, so originally Boyd's Moto Surgery was started by my parents, actually. It started out as a mechanical workshop for a Yamaha dealership when me and my sister were still really young and racing bikes ourselves. So my dad was a mechanic by trade, but he got into the coal mines, and it was a way to make bike racing cheaper for my parents and kind of keep us racing and keep us in the sport. So yeah, my parents started the business, and my sister and I kind of grew into it. These days we still can't get rid of Dad. He's still around the workshop every day. He loves bikes as much as the rest of us, so he's still around. But yeah, that's our kind of day job. We do everything from building race bikes, engines, suspension. We even do servicing and tires and your normal repairs to like daily commuters and things like that.
Oh, fantastic! So have you got a shop front as well up in New South Wales there?
Yes. So yeah, we do have a small shop front with accessories and mainly hard parts and things, but it's not something we push too hard. Our main bread and butter is the mechanical work.
Yeah. And do you deal with the general public mostly, or is most of your work to do with races and race teams?
To be honest, it's probably still more the general public, but it is swaying, even more so this year than in the past. But yeah, we started out, just working on motorcycles for the average guy that come through the door, and it's kind of grown from there to the point where now we do race team stuff and bulk work for different teams and other bike shops and things like that.
Yeah. How are you finding the industry at the moment? I know, I've got a few mates that are in the retail side of things, and they're actually doing it pretty tough at the moment.
We've been in this game for long enough. We've seen a lot of things come and go through the industry. We've seen booms, we've seen lulls. I guess the biggest boom we've seen in the industry was the whole, COVID era. That
it was crazy.
People bike mad. We couldn't keep up. We had so much stuff. In one point, I was buying so much 90s model suspension dirt bike parts that one supplier said to me, "You got to knock this off because we can't keep up with you." Yeah, so that was crazy. And then there's always ups and downs in the industry, and at the moment, nobody's really. It's kind of funny. Our business has a lot to do with racing, and I don't believe racing has not certainly slowed down in our business, but the other side of the industry has. So people commuting on bikes to and from work, that's slowed down. We don't have as much service work through the workshop as normal, but racing is busier than ever.
Are you like a retailer and dealership as well, or is it all just mechanical stuff?
So I'd say we're at least 95% workshop.
Yeah.
Our retail side is quite small because, if you want to chase that, you have to start employing more people. And not to get too negative, but employing people in the motorcycle industry is a pretty tough game these days.
Yeah.
We're a bit of a niche market, I guess, on the performance side of things. So you don't just stick an advertisement out there and get a guy that can map engines and port motors and things like that. So it is quite difficult for us to find employees. Like, I got enough work on. We could put another, at least 2 full-time mechanics on. But I'm always interviewing guys, talking to guys that come from dealerships, and what we do is not something you learn at TAFE, read a textbook on, or do a Google search and you figure it out. It's something that takes a lot of trial and error, a lot of experience, someone good and knowledgeable to teach you. There's no courses you can sign up and do.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you obviously started out as a rider and a racer. What actually got you into the mechanical side of the industry? Obviously, I know it was your family business, but you as an individual.
Honestly, it's probably something that was in me since I was a little kid. Even from a young age, I would, find old, like, whippersnipper motors and stuff on the side of the road, or buy them from op shops or something, or somehow get a hold of things and just pull them apart and figure out how it works. So even right back to when I was a little kid, I got all these expensive Tonka trucks and everything for birthday or Christmas and whatever it was, and my parents were spewing to find out that I had to pull everything apart all the time to figure out how everything worked. So that mechanics intrigued me from a young age. And as I grew up, I was bike mad. I was the same as every other kid that's rode a motorbike. I thought I was going to become a professional motorbike rider and earn $1 million and just race my bike for the rest of my life. But as I got older, reality set in, and realized I had to start sort of doing something else. And my dad was good with me. When I was young, he was in the coal mine. So he was doing dog watch. So if I wanted to go riding in the afternoons, I always had to have my bikes serviced and ready to go. When he'd get up out of bed, take me riding for a couple of hours, then we'd come home. I'd have to wash my bike, get it ready for the next day, and he'd go to work. So I learned from a young age, even down to suspension and everything. Like, he could do it, but he found it more important for me to figure it out.
Yeah.
So he would show me how to pull it apart, what to change, what to do, and then I'd experiment. And I had like YZ80s and YZ125s that I probably had the suspension apart several hundred times. And half the time in those early days, the setting I would come up with would be horrible, but you figure it out.
Did your old man get involved in the performance side of things as well? Or was it just sort of a general mechanical workshop?
So he did a bit. Yeah, he always did our bikes and stuff when we were little. But as I got older and older, I started to take over that more. A bit of a perfectionist when it comes to that stuff. So I guess as soon as I could turn the spanners, I wanted to take it off him and figure it out and do it myself.
And as a young mechanic, I think these days, the dream is always to work with riders and, not be confined to the workshop, but be, either a practice mechanic or a factory race mechanic. Did you ever pursue that path?
I did have some conversations there early on, and I did go down that road a little. So I had a few options of joining race teams and whatnot, but it's a bit of a catch-22 down that. It looks glamorous to jump on a race team and just work on brand new bikes every day. As far as skill development as a mechanic, working on brand new bikes is not going to make you the best mechanic you could be.
Yeah.
Because there's things that don't break on a brand new motorcycle.
You get good at changing clutches. Things like that.
So it's not super crazy technical work, and there's only so many race teams that really do their own performance work. A lot of it's farmed out. So I did sort of start to go down that road. But at the time, my sister was racing, and she was supported by Suzuki at the time. And we used to get a lot of help out of Jay Foreman when he ran the Suzuki race team. And I worked as my sister's mechanic. So she was racing women's Pro MX, and she was quite good. She was winning titles and state titles, and she was one of the top women's racers at one point. So I worked really closely with her, and then started working with my cousin as well, who's an up and coming junior. And so I worked more closely with riders that I had a personal sort of attachment to.
Yep.
Whether they were family and there was other riders over the years that had used us for several years or were family friends and things like that. So I kind of used that to hone my craft and learn to work with riders as I grew as well.
So in terms of honing your craft, like you sort of said, how it's hard to find staff that know what they're doing. How did you bridge that gap between, learning and being able to work at the highest level for the top racers?
I guess it would be humble of me not to say I've been learning the whole time. Like there's still, even at this stage, I've been doing this a long time and I'm still learning and figuring out how to do stuff better. And I think you've probably got to have that mentality and that mindset too. Otherwise you'll just stay in the same place, right? So for me, it's kind of a tricky one. Everyone wants to start at the top, but that's not how things are done. I spent a lot of time working with juniors and trying to get my own bikes right. Like even when I was racing Pro MX and Supercross, I probably could have paid someone else to do my suspension better, but I learnt through a lot of trial and error.
Yeah. So who are some of the riders and teams that you're working with these days? Because I'm down south in Victoria, and your reputation definitely precedes you. So who are some of the teams and riders that you're working with nowadays?
So these days, I guess Seth Thomas is one that's becoming a pretty common name. That's pretty hard to miss that one. I've spent several years now working with Seth. I've been involved with him since he was on a 65.
Yeah, he's an unbelievable rider. He was down here, the Gippsland Championships just on the weekend gone, and he's looking unreal.
I mean, I'd love to say that's all me, but realistically, that kid's got a lot of talent, right? He's got a very hard-working family. He's very driven. He knows the kid's almost ahead of his years. He knows what he wants. He knows where he wants to go, and he knows how he's going to get there. And nothing's going to get in his way or stop that. And he's got the parents that are willing to push that as well. He's got all the right recipe. Obviously, he's still really young, and we've seen plenty of kids in our sport that have had everything right and have still not got there. But he certainly has all the potential to make it all the way to being a world champion one day. So he's a big one. I think he's won a championship pretty well every year, or probably multiple every year since we've been working together. Riley Burgess, he's certainly making a name for himself at the moment.
Yeah, he got a Supercross podium this year, or last year, I should say.
Absolutely. So he has a very high skill set when it comes to Supercross. I think when Riley realises that, the rest of those guys in that MX3 class is probably going to be in trouble. And, another one that I've just started working with this year through a separate race team is Reese Budd. I mean, everybody should recognise that name. Reese has been around for a while, and he's got plenty of talent.
Yeah, again, he came down and raced at the Gippsland Championships, and I've been watching Reese pretty closely, the highest level of the sport over the last few years, and I would have to say the weekend is probably the best I've seen him ride in the last 2 or 3 years. I mean, he's really gelling with that Honda. He looked aggressive. He was fast. I'm actually super excited to see what he can do this year.
Yes. Reese is a bit of Reese has been close to me for a long time. I've known the whole Budd family. I remember riding with his brothers when we were kids, and going back over a decade now. But I used to also run and manage and coach the New South Wales junior motocross team, and Reese was on that team for several years. He'd won titles on a 50 and a 60, and so I've always had a relationship with him, but never worked with him from a mechanic's point of view. So pretty cool to take our relationship to the next level this
Yeah.
year. And really, he's an easy guy to work with. He knows what he wants out of the bike, knows what the bike needs to do. And we're making pretty good strides already. And he's not even on the race bike. So the bike you would have seen him race down there in Vic is his practice bike. It's nowhere near as fast as what his race bike is, and he's already impressed with that thing. So I keep telling him, just hang in there, let me get this race bike finished,
Yeah.
because he's stoked with what he's got, and his race bike's going to be like a whole nother 6+ horsepower better than what he's riding. So it's going to be pretty cool to see what he can do with that thing.
That's exciting. That's super exciting. Like I said,
Yes.
he was so aggressive, which was cool. And I mean, I saw glimpses of that when he first got on the Cowie, but nothing like I saw him on the weekend. So you're doing the engines and suspension for the Moto Coach Elite Racing Honda team?
So I'm doing the engines.
Yep.
Suspension's done by Kenny Wheeler, factory spec. So that's all cared for by Kenny. The suspension Reese is riding on is all factory spec. I'm just doing the engines.
Yeah. So when you get riders like Seth Thomas and Reese Budd, how do you go about developing an engine to suit a particular rider, or for you, is it just trying to get as much power out of it?
So it all depends on the rider you got. Seth wants the thing to be as fast and as aggressive as you can possibly make the thing, and he'll tame it. So I had a 250 SXF engine that I actually designed and tested and built with another MX3 rider, Lockie Morris. And we put Riley Burgess on that setup, and he come back and said, this thing's great, but it's too fast for me. I can't stop the thing. I can't turn it. It builds so much speed down the straights that I can't corner properly, because Riley's a very sort of smooth, calculated rider. And watching him recently, I'm not sure he slows down for corners. His corner speed and his corner entry speed is really high.
So he flows, yeah.
He flows really well. And that bike being too fast wrecked that on him. So we actually had to change the mapping and smooth that thing out and fix that so he could ride it as fast as he could. So it's, we're not drag racing. You don't just need the bike with the most peak horsepower and point it in a straight line and hold the throttle on. We actually have to get around a track. Every rider's different. You got obstacles. So the name of the game is to get any given rider around the track as fast as you possibly can for X amount of laps or time. It's not, there's no trophies for the guy that builds the bike with the most horsepower.
Yep.
So, luckily for us with modern fuel injection systems and everything and all the electronics we use, I have the ability to adjust timing and fueling and, traction control and all that sort of stuff to accommodate each and every rider. And we can map the bike personally to each and every individual rider and alter that and play with that until they're happy and comfortable.
So when you're dealing with those top level riders, obviously, building the engine package is the start. How much time do you actually spend trackside testing and getting, the bikes to work for the particular rider?
It depends on the rider too. Some of them aren't used to testing, comfortable coming to me and saying, can we change this? So I have to push them and be like, are you happy? Are you happy? Are you happy? Can we try this? Maybe I see this. Can we try this? And others want to do the testing and are used to it. So with Seth, the hours we've done testing with that kid is your calculator would explode if you tried to count that. Riley, we've done quite a lot with, especially during Supercross last year. We spent a lot of time with Riley dialing in start maps to try and get his start style. Currently, I'm doing a lot of testing with Richie Lawler.
Yeah.
Richie has a certain feeling he wants in the bike and wants it to be a certain way. And it takes quite a bit to get that dialed in exactly how he wants it. And with a lot of these guys, some of it's like me educating them too. So I've had riders in the past where they're like, I have to run this sag number, I have to run this sag number, I have to run this sag number. And I'm like, well, that is what's causing you to not flow through your turns, to knife your turns and push the front wheel out. Like, you can't run the sag that high. We're in the stand. Let's drop it down. Let's move this. And they're not all super willing to take that on all the time. And you've got to build a trust with them. You've got to, build some kind of rapport with them so that they trust what you say, especially if they've come from not every suspension guy does things exactly the same way. Everyone's got different ideas and different things. And sometimes I've had guys come to me from another suspension tuner or something, and I say to them, let's try this sag. And they're like, oh, I can't do that. So-and-so said that's bad. And I'm like, well, hang on, let's give it a shot. Let's not just write it off. Let's give it a go and see where we end up. And you've got to spend more time with those guys until they're on your side. And other guys can be difficult in a different way, where I'll change things and they'll come in and go, I didn't notice anything. And you're like, well, I've seen this. Your lap time's faster, or maybe that was a negative. Let's go this way. And then I've even got guys where you'll change something and they'll go out and adapt their riding, whether it's good or bad. They'll go and adapt their riding, figure it out, and go just as fast. They're the difficult ones, because you might change the shock, change a spring, change the ride height or something, and they'll just sit further back on the bike or move further forward on the seat and not even know they've done it.
Yep.
And you're like, well, you're counteracting what I've changed, so we're getting nowhere. So you've got to have a really keen eye for watching what they're doing, and lap times and things, and sometimes just doing 2 or 3 corners or a section and making a change is better than doing a lap. So there's no straight answer. There's no right. There's no wrong. It's whatever you can do to get to the right goal. Yeah.
Is managing that relationship between like mechanic and rider the hardest part of your job? Because, you've been in the game for a long time, and I can imagine that when it's going great, you're getting the accolades and the kudos. But when it's going bad, like, do you ever feel like the perception is that it's all your fault?
Sometimes yes, sometimes no. It depends on the rider, and even more so sometimes the family. Some people take it a lot more serious than others, and sometimes, especially when you're dealing with younger kids and families that are pumping loads of money into this, some kids just aren't wrong in mum and dad's eyes, no matter what. It must be the bike. It must be. So you got to be delicate sometimes with that. And my apprentice always says to me that he's never seen anybody with more patience than me in his life, because you do have to manage those relationships, and you got to remember what the end goal is, and it's to get that kid to perform, or that rider or whoever to perform. And sometimes the parents are an obstacle in that situation, and sometimes they're really good. So Riley Burgess, for example, I could ring his dad tomorrow and say, we're going to do this, and they got trust in me, and it'll happen. They'll go for it. Be like, yep, you know what you're doing, do it. Take Riley, figure it out. Other guys, I have to be more delicate with that situation and ease into that, or ease into changes, or and then I've got guys. I don't want to throw names on this one, but
you're being so diplomatic here. I love it.
yes. I've had people in the past who they'll won't have won by far enough, or dad who has zero knowledge in how suspension or an engine works will come to me and go, this is wrong, or the bike didn't come out of the gate fast enough. And I'm like, well, there's like 7 other bikes in that race that I built that are identical, and they were all in the top 10 going into the first corner. Probably not the bike, but hey, let's try this technique. No, it's the bike. So it can be very delicate, and sometimes you got to bite your tongue and just go, okay, give me 5 minutes, I'll approach this another way. But for me, I always try to remind myself what the end goal is. Not to fight with parents and tell them their kid's wrong or something. It's to get results. You got to deal with everybody individually, and everybody. And if there was some kind of playbook or some kind of Bible on how to deal with every rider, everyone could do it. It'd be easy, but it's not that simple. You need to have pretty strong people skills.
Having a background as a rider as well, do you find yourself like just naturally getting into some of the technique coaching to accommodate or facilitate like what the bike's doing as well?
Yes. So from like 18 to like almost 30, I also ran coaching schools. I coached the New South Wales junior motocross team to several. My memory might be off here, but I want to say 3 titles at the Australian junior title, like 3 state cups, or I believe they call it.
Yep.
So yeah, I did run a coaching business for a long time, and yes, sometimes that's the problem. Sometimes that's not the problem, but that does give me the knowledge to help in either of those areas. So, I had a rider 2 weeks ago who were trying to set up some suspension, and he kept saying to me that he didn't feel comfortable with this and that. The bike won't turn, and I can't flow through the corner. And I had to pull him aside and say, look, it doesn't matter what I do with the suspension. You're not sitting in the right area in the seat. You're riding the bike like you're scared of the front wheel. I need you to trust it. I need you to sit in the right part of the seat, and I need you to open the corner up and choose a better line, and pointed things out to them so they could do that. And then the suspension all of a sudden worked. So if I didn't have that knowledge and I just went down the line that road of click and clickers and just sag and fork heights, we never would have got to the right result. But it was a rider position problem, not a suspension problem. So yeah, I do find that helps me a great deal all the time.
When you've got junior riders sort of getting to that state level and that elite, Australian junior national championship level, is it possible to be successful on a more or less stock bike, or is suspension and engine performance like a key factor that's going to dictate success once you're starting to get to those levels? Because I see, even down here in Victoria at the state level, there's juniors that are spending an absolute fortune on bikes.
Yeah.
Is that critical, or is it just sort of something that helps?
So I've almost got 2 answers to that question. So business me wants to say everybody needs engine and suspension work. In reality, the better rider is going to win no matter what you do. If I took Seth Thomas last year in Prime X, stuck him on a dead stock bike, the result more than likely wouldn't have. I'd bet money on the result wouldn't have changed.
Yeah.
Because he's just a really good rider. Did my engine setup and everything help him? Sure it did, but it's not the reason he won. Does my engine and suspension package make Riley Burgess good? No, he's a talented rider. So while it helps them, it doesn't make them fast or make them good. So you're never going to take a kid in 30th, put him on Seth Thomas's race bike, and he's going to win. That's not going to happen. Talent, skill is always going to outweigh any engine or performance package. And like, if you were to say to me, would I be better off spending my money on the motor or suspension? I'd say suspension every time. If you can make the bike more comfortable and make the rider more confident in the bike with suspension, and you only have a certain amount of money to spend, then that would be where I'd say to spend it. Will an engine help them get off the line? Will it help them get better starts? If they've got all the right skill and they've got the talent, then yeah, it helps. But it's not going to, an elite engine's not going to take your rider and bump them up 5 places.
So changing gears a little bit, you were also a test rider for ADB. And that's obviously where you've honed a lot of your skills and being able to assess and, have a critical eye when it comes to watching riders and knowing what a bike is doing. Tell me a little bit about that role.
That was something I never went looking for. It was something I kind of fell into. I was still racing at the time and sort of at the end of my racing career, and I sort of met Mitch Lees, who was, working on the magazine at the time, and went riding with him a couple of times. And he's like, hey, do you want to do some articles for ADB? Do you want to do some test riding? And I'm like, yeah, sure. Kind of. I got involved in it, and it snowballed after that. So it kind of took off for me because I was a little bit unique in that field. I could test the bike, but I could talk about the bike technically. I could pick things wrong with the bike and say what you had to do to fix it. So I had the knowledge as a rider and as a mechanic. So it kind of took off really fast for me because there wasn't, I don't want to say there's nobody that was in the industry doing that before, but it was pretty rare.
Maybe not at
So
that level either.
no, no. So, I just come from racing Pro MXs and supercrosses, and I could ride a brand new bike and say, I don't like about this about the fork, but hey, if you do this with preload or a spring, you could fix it. Where everyone else at the time was kind of saying, we don't like this about the fork, and that was the end of the story. So that kind of took off pretty quickly for me, and I want to say that was about 2010, somewhere around there, 2009, 2010, and I started doing a lot of testing. I started doing almost all the motocross testing. Started doing a lot of enduro testing. Started doing like overseas launches and testing, and ended up being the technical editor of the magazine. And all these years later, I'm still there and we're still going and still doing it. So yeah, that's been a pretty cool ride.
Yeah, there's obviously the literary aspect as well. Like, have you always been a good writer, or was that something that you sort of had to learn to accommodate that role?
I mean, I don't have any training in that aspect apart from general schooling. I didn't go to uni as a journalist or anything like that. I just have good grammar and whatnot from school, and as well as Mitch helped me a lot in the beginning on how to structure things properly. And we've had editors and whatnot over the years that have been really helpful for me and give me guidance on how to structure articles and things. But these days I get pretty well free reign on what and how to write because I've built that trust, and yeah, Mitch knows what I'm writing about. Happy with everything I do, and it's a pretty cruisy role these days. But yeah, it did. There was some. I don't want to say growing pains at the start, but I did need some guidance with stuff. I was just a fresh motocross kid and started writing articles, so I absolutely needed a little bit of guidance there.
Obviously, knowing what's sort of happening with the motorbike and being a good rider are two of the key ingredients, but being able to feel like what's going on. Have you always been sort of a rider that's been able to feel the nuances of what the bike is doing, how it's handling,
I mean,
and being able to communicate that?
Yeah, I've always had a feel for it. I'd always, even when I was like 15, 16, my mates would give me their bikes and say, ride this and tell me what it's doing wrong. And I'd go grab a screwdriver and click this, click that, turn that. Be like, there you go, that's better. And they'd ride it and go, wow, how'd you do that? I'm like, I don't know. I don't really know how I do that. I felt that, so I fixed it. So I've always had that for as long as I can remember, to be honest. It's not something that I was really taught. I just know, I guess I've been riding a motorcycle since I was, 5, 6 years old. And I did that multiple times a week my entire, childhood.
Yeah.
So the amount of hours and time and feel I had from a bike from a kid was high. So even at the time I was racing other guys in Pro MX that I don't want to throw him under the bus, but he was riding for quite a high level team at the time, and I would ride his bike and be like, man, what is going on with this jetting? What are you guys doing? I'd adjust things and he'd be like, wow, that's totally different. I'm like, yeah, I think you need to stop giving the team feedback and just run that, because whatever you're telling them, it ain't going the right way. Yeah, I just always knew what I wanted out of the bike and knew how to get it.
Yeah, I don't think that's that uncommon though. Like, I talk to a lot of the riders in the paddock now, and I think it's pretty safe to say they have varying degrees of feel as to what the bike is doing. And like Cody O'Lone, who's one of the riders on my program, we always laugh about it. He reckons he could have the back wheel missing off the bike, and he probably wouldn't know when he hits the track. When you get riders like that, is that sort of hard to work with as well?
It is, and that brings in a whole nother level of skill. So you've then got to watch the bike very closely. And one thing I tell a lot of people is when you're watching suspension, don't watch the guards go up and down. Try and watch the contact of the wheels on the ground, essentially that's the role of the suspension, right? It's to keep the wheels on the ground so you can brake and accelerate. Everybody will often watch the guard and try and adjust the guard until it's still. Now, you can get to a point where the guard's still and the wheel's not on the ground. How are you going to accelerate? So, yeah, it brings in that whole, technical aspect. You now have to watch that guy very closely. You've got to watch his body position. You've got to watch what the bike's doing, the contact with the wheel on the ground. Yeah, a stopwatch helps a lot. Do smaller sectors, because quite often you'll make a change. Tell them to do 5 laps, and by the time they've gotten back to you, they've forgot what they were even trying to feel in the first place. So yeah, it takes a whole nother level of skill to figure those guys out. It's not impossible. It's doable. It just takes more work.
So you obviously, are a good test rider yourself, but when you're working with a rider, like, what are the ingredients that make a good test rider?
I'd say it's probably almost more important to have a good trust between the mechanic and the rider, and a good bond there. So, I mean, using Riley for an example, he knows no matter what he comes in and tells me, I'm not going to crack it at him and be like, no, that bike's perfect. He can come in and give me 100% honest feedback, and I will take it and sort it out. So that's important. If you're scared to come in and tell your mechanic something, because he'll be like, you come in and say, oh, I think the front's too hard, and he goes, no, that's crap. Get out there and ride it. It's perfect. That's, you're starting to put a divide in between you there. So there needs to be a really good, close relationship so you can both trust each other. And it goes both ways. Like, the rider trusts the mechanic. He'll let the mechanic make changes from his perspective and his opinion. And then the rider's got to have the trust to come in and tell the mechanic, and the mechanic go, okay, let's try this then. So
going back to your test riding for ADB, what are some of the most interesting projects? You said you've tested all around the world for them, but what are some of the most interesting projects you've had the opportunity to work on?
I mean, one of the coolest rides I've got to do would have been going over and testing for KDM on the Romaniacs track. So we didn't do Romaniacs. We were there a couple of weeks, I believe, before the event started, and we were there with one of the guys that sets the tracks out, and Martin, who runs the whole deal. And doing that ride was pretty awesome. We were spending 10 hours a day on the bikes and getting back to the hotel absolutely cooked. I remember saying to the guy who sets the tracks out, I'm like, man, you got so much talent and skill on the bike. Like, you're incredible. Like, how do you finish up in Romania? He's like, I finished about 500th or something. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, I can ride all the tracks, but the guys that beat me can ride the tracks way faster than me. And I was kind of like, wow, that gives you a really good indication of how good those guys are in Europe at that stuff. That one's a hard one to forget, that cool. Ride we did over there. The next one would probably be when I went and spent time with TM. That was a really cool experience. Went over and did some testing with them, hung out at the factory, got to meet everybody. That's a very unique company. I want to say it's probably one of the last companies in the last motorcycle manufacturers in the world like that. They're a family. Everything's hand built. There's a guy that sits there at the bench and hand ports every cylinder through production. And I remember saying to one of the guys, like, if you had a CNC machine, that would be so much quicker. And he's like, why would I do that? He's family. He's like, the whole company went to his son's birthday 2 weeks ago. If I sack him for the place of a CNC machine, I got to go and tell his family that their father and their grandfather's out of a job. And I'm like, okay, that makes complete sense. It's a very unified company in that way. And seeing the way they hand assemble everything and seeing their production line, and you hear the pride in their voices when they sit down and talk about their motorcycle. And then it's almost sad to come back to Australia and see that there's so much effort and pride that goes into that motorcycle, and we barely see them.
They're very cool looking motorcycles, though. I
yes,
definitely dig them.
Yes, yeah. So yeah, they're probably two of the coolest things I've got to do with ADB. Other than that, we've done, we've had that many projects with ADB over the years. We resurrected an old RMX 250 and for Suzuki and brought it back to life. That was pretty cool project. Had several builds and things and adventure rides where we, got on adventure bikes and rode as far as we could in one direction for the day and spent the night at the pub and rode back the next day. We get to do a lot of cool, fun stuff that without that job with ADB, you'd never get to do.
Yeah, sounds like a bit of a dream gig, actually.
It is, and it almost feels silly to say that I fell into it. It wasn't like, now I know what I get to do with that. I would have died to do that as a kid, and I didn't even know it was an option for me one day. I just fell into the role, and all these cool things opened up and happened, and all these cool industry contacts where I've met the guys building and designing the bikes from KDM, Gas, Sherco. Like I've met all the owners and the design team from Sherco personally. You don't get to do that unless you have some kind of in the industry.
With everything else you got going on, how much of your time does that actually still take up in your role as for ADB?
So ADB's gone through a bit of a change currently with Mitch Lee's now the sole owner of the company. So there's a bit of a transition period for us at the moment with Mitch, getting to do things the way he wants to do now. There's not a publisher in front of him telling him what he can and can't do. So at this stage, my role with ADB is a little bit slower, being the start of the year. We've already got new models and things. There is a lot of cool stuff that we have in the plans coming up with ADB. Mitch has started his own podcast channel, and we'll be able to start doing merch again. We'll be able to do all this other cool stuff that we were told no, we can't do in the past. So that's going to be really cool for us. And then as the year goes on and we start seeing newer models, I will start doing a lot more testing and things. Still last week we're doing a mapping story with the WR 250 and 450. So we released a bunch of maps on YouTube channel that were, people can screenshot those and put those into their own bikes. So it keeps me very busy. But as the year goes on, especially towards the back end of the year, racing will slow down a little bit and I'll do a lot more testing, and then come around to the start of the season, it's flat out building bikes and a little bit less on the testing side.
Do you do their shootouts as well? Do you get involved in that side of things?
Yes. Yeah. So I've always been involved in the shootouts. Give too much away, but we do have an enduro one coming up in the next month. It's going to be pretty cool. I've always been involved in motocross ones and riding the motocross tests and like the motocross shootouts. Yeah. So I've always got a part in those somewhere.
Are there constraints, like when you're working for a publication and obviously you've got manufacturers and distributors giving you products or bikes, are there constraints about what you can say, and how honest you can be in the feedback? So
this is a funny one, right? For as long as I've worked for ADB, I'll have people walking up to me saying, "Oh yeah, I bet you didn't like that bike, but you weren't allowed to say it." No, we say exactly what we think and what we want, because at the end of the day, I've been in this testing industry for a long time, and I've got a lot of people that trust what I say. And that's only because I have integrity and I say exactly what I think. Anybody who's read my articles for years will know where I've picked on a bike. But what I try to do to keep the manufacturers happy on the same side is, if I point out a fault, if I can, I'll try and say how to fix it. But if a bike has a fault, we absolutely have to say it. We absolutely have to mention it. Otherwise, our integrity goes out the window, and then we become, just some magazine that's trying to pretend like everything's excellent. And then there's no weight behind anything we say or write. So, we are absolutely. I mean, I can't say that for every journalist and everyone that's ever worked as a test rider, but I absolutely can for ADB and myself. If we have a problem with a bike, we say it, we write it, and the manufacturers know that we will, and they can't question it, because if we're not the only ones saying it, it's not like they can come to us and say you're wrong.
Yeah.
But we have had issues in the past where the manufacturer hasn't been happy with with what we've said. So we've given them a resolution and said, okay, well, give us the bike back. Let us see if we can fix it, and we'll tell the public how to fix it. Because we're not wrong. What we're stating, what we're saying is an actual fact. We're not just pulling things out of the air because we don't like a certain brand or something. And then we'll do a separate feature on how to fix the problem that we come up with. So there is, some of them get upset sometimes.
But ultimately, it's like you're doing a review. It's not an advertisement.
Yeah.
So they've got to understand that too.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. We're not straight up doing an advertisement for a manufacturer. We're essentially, working for the people buying the magazine, giving them the correct information. So, if the manufacturer wants to pay for ads, they can pay for ads. But a test ride is not a paid ad. We're giving our 100% honest feedback on that bike.
As far as riding the bikes go, has there been a bike over the years that stood out for you, like straight out of the crate, as being exceptional? And what's the best bike that you've ridden, especially motocross wise?
Oh, I was speaking to a friend of mine about this the other week. So my last full series, like racing Super X, or Super X, what it is back then, Supercross now, was on a 2009 YZ450. And I thought that thing was the greatest bike I've ever ridden. Yeah, I got the memories of that thing, feeling like that bike was so great. I could do anything on it. And it was, got the chance to ride another one. And I shouldn't have done it. I should have left those memories as fond memories, because I rode another one. I was like, how did I ride Supercross on this bike? Like, it bogs. You have to accelerate like a second or two before you want to accelerate. If you're trying to jump through a rhythm lane, you've got to keep the revs high. Like I explained to my apprentice the other day, the reason we all revved the crap out of our bikes in the air was so they didn't bog when we land. Like if we were trying to go triple through a section and you waited till your wheels were on the ground to accelerate, you were stepping over the bars. You had to be accelerating before your wheels touched down. Like there was no instant torque or instant power. Those carbies would bog every second they got. So probably wasn't a great idea that I rewrote that thing, because it kind of hurt that for me. But in the current era, look, I want to go back and say like around that 2012 CRF 450 was probably one of the greatest steering bikes I've ever ridden. The air fork era wasn't a fond memory for me. But in today's bikes, man, it's really hard to beat the YZ450s. They steer really well these days. Like they have changed so much since that first generation of like reverse engine bike they had. They're pretty incredible these days. They're very hard to fault. But recently, one of the bikes that impressed me the most is actually the Beta, the RX 450.
Yep.
That, for a bike that's not, a super well complemented bike around the world. Well, maybe not super well complemented, but people assume that it's not going to be great because they're an enduro brand or something like that. I try and tell people how good that bike is, and they go, really? I'm like, absolutely. If you get the chance, ride one. They steer and corner so well, especially in ruts, and the power delivery is perfect for every club level guy that wants to ride a 450. Like, the Yamaha is so fast, it probably gets more people in trouble than it helps. But that Beta, especially the 26 model, the power is a lot stronger, a lot smoother, and so well usable from the bottom. It's a very underrated motorcycle.
Yeah, speaking to Cody O'Lone, who we were talking about earlier, he's on the RX 450 this year, and he said he absolutely loves it. Like he's coming off a YZ as well. And he said, from day one, he found himself gelling with the bike and found it really easy to ride, it's going to be interesting. I mean, I think in 24, Levi Rogers was on the Beta, and I mean, they had a lot of mechanical issues that year. So, hopefully this year, sort of they've...
I mean, the only thing we haven't seen is that bike race in a full series, right? So, I mean, I know the guys at Beta are pushing hard they'll keep stock, they'll air freight stock in. They, to be honest, there's worse companies out there to get parts for at the moment. It'll be interesting to see how it goes and where, how Cody does on it and whether that translates to more beaters around the racetrack or not. Because it is a really good bike, but it's a hard one for people to believe when you tell them that.
Yeah, and you've got to overcome that brand loyalty that exists for all the other manufacturers as well.
100%. When you've got, KTM and Yamaha, where all these kids are starting on those from 4 years old and racing them right through their entire lives, and then all of a sudden they've got to switch up and get on a different brand, it's pretty tough. Especially like, I know for most of my customers, they're like, I've got all my spare parts, my brake pads, my sprockets, I got spare wheels, levers, bars, air filters, oil filters, everything is for KTM. And now I'm supposed to scrap all of that and go get on something else and buy new spare wheels and bars and brake pads. It's a big cost to transfer from one brand to another.
Yeah. They recently announced that Suzuki's going to be bringing out a new 450 in 2028. Did you hear that? And do you have any sort of thoughts about that?
The Suzuki is still a capable, good bike. And when I first started test riding and stuff, it was winning shootouts, doing really well. It was the first for a lot of things. Like, it was one of the first production bikes to be fuel injected. They really led the way into this modern four-stroke era we're in. So it kind of sucks to see them get left behind a bit. So it's really good. But I mean, personally, I think we need as many manufacturers in the sport as we can. That brings in, more money for racers and riders. That brings in, more sponsorship deals. That brings in more brands, more dealerships. It's good right round for us, right? So if Suzuki brings out a new model and that brings them back in a good way into racing, then it's going to only be good for us.
I totally agree. I only ask because I've seen a bit of a renaissance with Suzuki's at the local tracks and even at the races down here. And I actually had a chance to ride the RMZ 250. It was a 2021 recently. And it's probably, I'm not a massive fan of 250s. I think you've got to be a pretty good rider to get around on a 250 well. I like the laziness that a 350 or a 450 accommodates, but I found the RMZ 250 amazing to ride. So I'm kind of excited about Suzuki bringing another one.
I'm with you on the liking to be lazy on the 450. I'm getting to that age myself. But yeah, I have a fondness for that RMZ 250. I did a lot of work with those when my sister was racing. My sister was the Suzuki supported female racer from maybe 06 through to like 2009-ish, somewhere there.
Yep.
So I did a lot of work with those bikes early on. So yeah, I do have a soft spot for those. I've still got parts everywhere, like custom crankshafts and cylinder heads and things for those bikes that it's really worth nothing these days, and nobody's going to want that for a 2007 model RMZ 250, but it still feels too important to throw away.
No, for sure. All right, well, we're going to take a quick break and listen to a few words on behalf of our sponsors. When we get back, we're going to talk a little bit about the race team that you've put together, and as well as your career as a racer.
We hope you're enjoying the show. Here at Mental for Moto, we can only do what we do because of the sponsors who support us. So please stay tuned for a couple of brief ads and make sure you show these legends some love.
Are you getting arm pump, fatiguing after just a few laps, or feel like you're often fighting against your bike? Today's motorcycles have been designed and built to suit a broad range of riders, conditions, and riding styles. This one-size-fits-all approach, however, means that when it comes to your own riding, your bike is often not handling and performing at its very best. Whether you're a weekend warrior or an elite-level racer, Fastline Suspension will help you unlock your riding potential by ensuring your bike is set up perfectly for your specific needs. And with the right setup, you're guaranteed to go faster, fatigue less, and ultimately have more fun riding your motorcycle. So what are you waiting for? Contact Adam at Fastline Suspension now. Fastline suspension, set up for maximum performance, precision tuned for you.
There's nothing more refreshing after a day at the track when you're sweaty, grimy and exhausted than taking a dip in the pool. Southeast Pools specialise in building high-quality fiberglass and concrete swimming pools across the Peninsula and Gippsland region and offer a range of designs to suit every lifestyle, yard size and budget. So pick up that phone, give Trav at Southeast Pools a call today and be ready to take the plunge this summer.
Hero helmets have won over 125 motorcycling world titles with world-renowned superstars including Antonio Cairoli, Jeffrey Hurlings, Martin Muscan, even Jason Anderson. From the world stage right down to the grassroots motocross scene, Arrow is the title sponsor of the Gippsland Motocross Championships and even supports up-and-coming local legends such as Memphis Stravina and Zan McIntosh. As one of the lightest and safest helmets on the market, when it comes to protecting my most important asset, I choose Arrow as well. To check out the range of Arrow helmets, head into your local dealer today or click the link below to visit the website.
At Mental for Moto, our mission is to give the unsung heroes of Aussie motocross a voice. From grassroots racing right through to the biggest events in the country, sharing the stories you won't hear anywhere else. From the privateer chasing the dream, to the junior rider who's pushing for their first win, the mechanic who works late into the night to get the bike ready for race day, to the track builder who turns a pile of dirt into a work of art. This is the beating heart of our sport. We're able to bring these stories every week to thousands of Aussie Moto fans thanks to the generous sponsors who share our vision. If you're interested in the advertising packages that we have available, or just want to show your support, please check out our website, www.mentalformoto.com, and we can tailor a package to suit your needs. Now, let's get on with the show.
Alrighty, so you recently announced that you've launched the Boyd's Moto racing team. So my first question is why?
Simple answer is probably just my love of racing. It's very hard to turn off that competitiveness when you grow up racing a motorcycle. And my days racing at a competitive level are well behind me. It's hard not to sort of be with these, guys when they're racing and ride the highs and the lows and all the emotions of that with them. And I just feel like I'm in a position to help and want to be involved and want to try and win some championships.
Yeah. Well, you've got a lot of riders on the team and they're sort of going from junior amateur riders all the way up to sort of aspiring pro riders. What's the plan in terms of events and what the program is going to look like for you guys?
Yeah, so they're all customers of ours in some way or another from Boyd's Moto Surgery. So that was kind of the whole deal, as we're helping people who have supported us. So it wasn't about just taking anybody and trying to take them racing. It was about supporting the people that support us. And we've got riders we've got a young guy coming from WA, we've got a rider coming from New Zealand, as well as a bunch of local Newcastle and Sydney riders. But the plan is to race New South Wales state motocross titles, Pro MX. So we've got guys that will do the MX65, 85 and MX3 class, as well as we've got Mia Tung who will do the women's at Pro MX. And all those guys will race state titles as well. Supercross is, I want to say I'm committed to Supercross, but it's kind of hard to say I'm committed to Supercross when we still sort of know nothing about Supercross, and there's a few venues that are still up in the air there that probably make anybody in my situation a little nervous.
I think it's safe to say we probably won't find out about them till a couple of months before round one.
And if the rumours are right, that's gonna probably hurt, especially if we end up with a round in Western Australia or
New Zealand,
or possibly New Zealand. I know that's going to hurt a lot of smaller teams like myself, privateers, and pretty much anyone funding their own way. So depending on how that all goes, I know Riley will do Supercross at some degree under our banner, but I don't know what that looks like or how that's going to be yet, but we will support him some way through Supercross because I really feel confident in saying that he's very likely a title contender this year in the MX3 class in Supercross.
In terms of your riders and the equipment they'll be on and the gear that they'll be wearing. Is that sort of part of the team structure? Like, are they going to be on a unified brand, or it's just what they bring and you're providing the mechanical, the suspension, the setup, and basically everything they need in terms of parts?
Yeah. So, I mean, originally I wanted this to look a lot different. I was aiming for a unified brand, gear, tires, oil, all that sort of stuff, like a proper team. It was kind of disheartening the amount of no's or setbacks I copped in that regard, to the point where it almost made me just throw my hands in the air and go, no, it's all too hard. But what we settled on is that so especially a lot of the guys and girls I wanted in the team already have bike sponsors through a brand or a dealership. They have gear sponsors that give them gear or pay them money. So it was really hard to go and find external gear companies or what not on that front and keep the riders that I wanted. So, I mean, I'd like it to be that way in the future. When and how, I don't really know, but this is the situation where we're settled on for 2026, is that we supply all the mechanical work, a pit setup. We can do, any repairs. We carry spare parts, rebuild just about anything out the back of the truck. We're set up well enough that we can do suspension revalving. We got nitrogen for gassing shocks, everything in the truck. We got shims and springs, and so if anybody's having any kind of issue, we can do a full suspension rebuild, overhaul. Yeah, so that's what we're supplying to our riders, but they keep their own personal sponsors.
Was it challenging, like, as a team trying to get support? Like, what was the sort of reception that you got when you announced to I guess, industry brands, dealerships, people that you approached? Like, have you been able to get support on different levels?
Challenging's probably not the right word for it. It was very disheartening, to say the least. There was a lot of companies that we spent a lot of money with as a business. So without stating names, there was one in particular that we spent $25,000 with in January, who wouldn't even talk to us about a discount, let alone any free product. It was very disappointing and very hard to take all the no's and there's several companies that I helped when they started out through ADB and whatnot that didn't even want to have a conversation with me. Brands like manufacturers was a hard one. I had a lot of conversations there, but I was always referred back to, most of the conversations went, yeah, Matt, we'd love to do something with you. We think this is awesome. We love the idea, but we'll put you in contact with a dealer and get you set up through a dealer. I'd talk to the dealer and that'd start opening up. So they'd offer race plans. And then that would open up to them starting the conversations with, oh, we're going to be a partner. Well, hang on, I'm $100,000 into this thing by the time we get to Pro MX. You giving me race plans doesn't make us partners. So it was really difficult. So a lot of the conversations I had, so when I was racing and growing up, results got you sponsorships. That's not the case anymore. So I would go to companies and be like, hey, we have a guy who's got a realistic chance of possibly winning a title, state championships, decent overall results, podiums, would you help us? And they look me dead in the eyes and go, how many followers have you got? I'd be like, I don't know. I haven't even started an Instagram page for our team yet. I got no followers. Oh, okay. Well, when you've got, say, roughly 30,000, come back and talk to us and we'll see what we can do. That kept happening to me over and over and over. And I'm like, I'm telling these people we have the potential to win championships this year, and all they care about is how many followers we have. So that was a bit of a tough lesson for me to learn, that that's what the industry wants now, and I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah.
So I had to change how I approached a lot of these companies. And then I figured out the bigger the company, the much less likely I am to get any help from them. The bigger the company, there's a lot more people that they, have to kick it up the chain to, more people they've got to ask, more red tape they've got to go through. Yeah, we'll have that conversation at next month's board meeting, and it would never happen. I'd speak to a little family business, and they'd be like, "Yeah, we'd be stoked to help." So I had to learn on who to approach, how to approach them, and where. So the most help I get is from much smaller companies than any bigger companies or anything like that. And as far as like, so I can say like Technic Motorsport, he's a suspension shop in Sydney. So Nick he's done the whole truck thing himself, mobile suspension tuning. He's been a suspension tuner for decades. He's a good guy. He's been around a long time. These days, he manufactures his own springs, a lot of his own parts and tools and things, and is more of a distributor to workshops and guys like me. He gave us $2,500 worth of tools for free to put in the truck. And like I stated before, there's another company who we spent 25 grand with just in the month of January, who wouldn't give me 5% off any of their products. That was tough to take and sort of a tough pill to swallow, but we managed to get to a point where we got enough funds together to get us through, the year. So it will be tough. We don't have crazy amounts of funds, and all my riders have to fund a certain amount of stuff themselves. I'm not in a position where I can hand out free bikes, but I can certainly help them with testing and suspension and engines and all that stuff, advice through the races, and we will build from the current setup we have now, and hopefully the plan is to one day build it into a full proper pledged team and prove to all those people that told me no that we can do it and we are worthy of help and sponsorship.
Yeah. Just going back to what you said earlier, because I mean that's my experience as well in terms of the industry, like getting support for the podcast, for the calendars, little different projects that I've done over the years. I've found exactly the same, that the biggest brands by far the least likely to give you no as an answer, and it's the small businesses, especially Australian brands, family-owned brands, local brands. Or businesses, I should say, that give you that support. And I kind of see that across the board. Like now that, I'm covering the sport from a media perspective, I'm really seeing that some of the biggest brands in the industry, not just in Australia, but around the world, are putting the least back in.
Yeah.
Especially compared to when you look at, say, the early 2000s, and, they were partners and sponsors of events. You were seeing their gear on riders. They were handing out gear. Why do you think that's changed?
I don't know. That's a hard question. I don't think it should have changed. Like, to me, I was always brought up on the thought that, you nurture the industry you're in. If you just take and take from, the certain bucket, eventually that bucket's empty. If you don't refill it, you can't keep taking from it. And I feel like a lot of them have got into that position, and a lot of these companies we've got, people probably don't realise, is they're not necessarily owned by an Australian family or Australian people. They're bigger corporations that own multiple companies and dealerships and franchises and
Have shareholders. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and they are absolutely not about making the industry better. They are all about making more money for their shareholders. So that probably hurts us as an industry, and that's just kind of the corporate world, though. Unfortunately, I don't think that makes it right, and I don't agree with it. But I think that's why it is that way. A lot of the smaller importing companies got really hurt when we had this massive boom of everybody wanting to buy everything from America when they could get it a couple of dollars cheaper. So I don't want to say we did it to ourselves, but it helped. I know of a few import companies that have closed and gone or sold out to bigger corporate companies because they were struggling, and things have changed now and everybody's kind of more back to buying in America. But a lot of those companies were really hurt in that time when you could go onto an American website and then import your own gear and, get it cheaper. So I think save a little bit of money. Unfortunately, that hurt the industry here in Australia. And I don't know that we've fully recovered from that.
I tend to agree. And the reason I ask is because it's really changed, like the last couple of years, my perspective as to, who I support, who I'll promote, and the products and brands that I buy as well. So, if there's a lesson in there for the listeners is get out there and support the Australian brands and the local guys. Not necessarily some of the biggest brands in the industry.
It really goes a long way. Like, especially, like, you look at some of these like bigger race teams and stuff, a lot more signage and stuff has started to pop up on their trucks of like plumbing companies or a civil company or something like that, where back in the day it was a tyre brand that was giving them money, or an oil brand. They're not doing that anymore, so they've got to, maybe not to the extent they were back in the early 2000s, but now they're getting sponsorship money from a plumber or like something that's not. And I'm not opposed to external sponsorships in our industry. I think that the more external sponsors we can get into our industry, the better it's going to be.
Yep.
But for more and more of those guys to want to come into our industry, we need to put it in front of more faces too. So I'm not opposed to that, but I don't think it's right that a lot of those companies within the industry just they kind of get away with it. They don't have to help, right? Because they're still going to sell their tires, they're still going to sell their oil, they're still going to sell their gear or their products, whether they sponsor people or not. We're still going to buy from them. So I feel like they've learnt that and they just pull back.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. As far as like your role with the team, are you going to be attending all these events? Like, are you going to have time to actually get to all the races with your riders?
Yes, I'm going to have a very busy year, but I have a fairly mixed role from, head engine guy, head technician, head suspension guy,
Team manager.
I help drive the truck. I have help. My wife, my sister, they're both heavily involved. My sister does all like she runs the accounts and everything for us in our workshop, and she's basically the one liaison for all of the back end stuff in the race team. Like, she's paying all the fees for us to take mechanics to the races, to the Prime X. She's organising the fuel cards. She's doing all that stuff. She's organising the shirts. She's ordering the banners. She's doing the stickers. Yeah, I'm building the bikes and talking to riders and whatnot. And my wife helps out. She'll be at the races with us. She'll be often running around with a camera or a phone, probably jam it in the riders' faces when they come off the track and trying to get stuff for social media. Even my mum's still involved. She gets in the truck and cleans the truck, and she's helped. Yeah, something we kind of overlooked as we built this whole truck, and kind of stood back and went, "Yeah, we done well." And she looked at it and went, "You don't even have any bedding or pillows in there." So she's come forward with the cutlery and the bedding, and so it's a full family operation. We're all involved to some degree. Even our kids, we use them as poster kids and take photos of them wearing the clothes, and all the social media posts and everything you see is my sister and my wife.
Yep.
So we're all
you're all in.
We're all involved to some degree. Yeah, it's going to be a busy year, but look, at this stage, for the next 12 months, we're all in, and we get little to nothing out of it. The plan is to grow this. Like, all we're going to get from it is the enjoyment of watching these guys perform, hopefully win. It will give us a lot more brand awareness as well around the races, which I hope translates to more work. But the truck doesn't give us any financial benefit whatsoever. It's purely a cost to us. So it is for the love of racing at the end of the day.
Yeah. I mean, is it possible? I think I've got my own opinion on this, but is it possible to have a satellite motocross team, say at the Prime X and Supercross, that's actually profitable?
Possible. I'm not sure that it's probably happened. There might be someone out there that's making something that I don't know about. I'm not sure it's really happened.
Yep,
Anything's possible. Can it happen? I don't know. That might be another question you got to ask me in 2 or 3 years' time.
can do.
Um, if profit means that our business does better from it, then I guess I can call that profitable. But will the race team make a whole bunch of money for me to retire on? Absolutely not.
Not.
That's yeah, that's that's not going to happen. I
Yeah.
think we both know that ain't going to happen.
Unless some of
Um,
these industry people start pouring some money back in.
yeah, I mean, I did have a phone call from a brand who was like, "Would you be interested in running a junior program for us?" I'm like, if you asked me 6 months ago, I'd have this conversation, but you guys have left it way too late. So there has been a few brand conversations I've had and entertained. There was another one that we were willing to do. The only problem was it meant I would have to stop doing a lot of work through the workshop and solely run a race team for them. And they weren't willing to pay me to do that, which was kind of, I mean, 20-year-old me probably would have thought it was an excellent idea. Let's go racing for the year and give up my day job and earn no money. I would have been stupid enough to do that at 21, but at this day and age, I've still got kids and family I have to support, so I need to make money somehow, and that's what the workshop does for us. The race team is kind of for fun.
No, for sure. Before we move on to your riding career, I just wanted to ask you one more thing about setting up the team and your business, because I heard you had a massive setback and that you guys got robbed.
Yeah, yeah. So this whole journey's been hard enough as it is, and then that was yeah. I rode a wave of emotions through that I didn't know could possibly happen. So the truck used to park out the front of our workshop. I stupidly fell for. I mean, we don't know exactly if this is why it got robbed, but I basically paraded to the world what was in the truck through social media because that's what these companies were asking me to do. They're like, if you build a social media following and show everyone what you're doing and you can get X amount of followers, we'll sponsor you. So I kind of took that and ran with it. It's like, yeah, let's show everybody what's in the truck, what we're doing, all our spare parts, all our tools. Next minute we get robbed. So the next kicker to that was I didn't realize this at the time. Like the amount of time I worked weekends, like my wife, my sister, my dad, my mum, one of my best mates, we poured so much of our own time, money, weekends into building that. The amount of work that goes into setting a truck up like that was like tenfold what I anticipated. So we'd put our heart and souls into it, and for the truck to get robbed, absolutely was the biggest kick in the guts. I was nearly in tears. I got a phone call at like 4:45 in the morning to say the alarm was going off at the workshop. There was a security guard there. The back door of the truck's wide open. The roller door was ripped up. So we got in there and it was still dark, but as soon as my headlights of my car hit the back of the truck, I could see everything was gone. So all our power tools, all our spare parts, all our air tools, everything, like boxes of shims, boxes of jets, everything they could pick up. They even stole the side awning off the truck. So everything got ripped off.
Jesus.
They ripped the window off the side, got into like the front living quarters of the truck, broke the window. They couldn't even be nice enough to use bolt cutters to cut the locks off the back door. They used a crowbar and just ripped the bolts and locks through the door and just broke all the door. Yeah, got in there, just ripped all the toolboxes open and emptied everything. So I started doing inventory of everything there was missing. Well, before even that, it took me a few days to get to that because I was like, I would go from depressed to angry to stuff this I'm not doing anymore to now I'm just going to kill every thief I can get my hands on. And that went on for probably 4 days until I think a mate of mine said to me, I don't know what you're doing, but I'm going to be in the truck at Canberra with our riders for the first round of the state titles. You can come if you want to. And I went, okay, we got to try and get this thing back on the road. So I started doing inventory and made a list of all the stuff that was missing and broken. And sister called our insurance broker and went, we've been broken into. Here's our list of stuff. And he said, oh, well, the doors are insured on the truck, but the contents isn't. We went, hang on a second. We asked you to insure the truck for X amount and X amount of content. And he said, no, we never did that. We just insured the truck.
Oh,
Everything they stole was not insured. The cost to replace it all was $15,000. So we budgeted everything right down to like the last dollar to make every round of like state titles, junior nationals, Pro Max, and Supercross. We didn't have another $15,000 to pour into it. Like we got a business loan to buy and build the truck, and we'll paint it off. So you can't just go back to the bank and go, hey, we got robbed, we need another 15 grand. So then that was kind of back to rock bottom. What the hell do we do now? I had a post where I basically just kind of filmed myself talking about what had happened and standing in the back of the truck and, saying we needed some help and explaining everything. And that got something like over 30,000 views. Like, if I was going to go viral for something, I didn't think it would be a video of me in tears, basically just about on breaking point. But that generated some really good sponsors for us. A company called VHA Lawn Care, another company, Hex Industries, and Topping Transport came forward and have helped us get back on the road. Without them, I don't know what we're going to do. So, I mean, we're still budgeted down to the last dollar, but we're back. We're back in business. We're back running again.
yeah.
So,
It's really shit that it took that to get the support, but it's also fortuitous, that support came out of
yes.
what was a really shit situation.
Yeah, I mean, these guys from VHA Lawn Care kind of blindsided me big time. They turned up to our workshop. They had all their cars, all their employees. They drove up to the door. They all got out, walked inside, and I'm standing there thinking, what is going on here? They walked in and said, we want to help you. What's it going to cost we really believe in what you're doing. We've seen all the junior and young riders. You want to help and what you're trying to do. And we really love the idea of it. They all ride bikes, but they're not racers. So they got kids that ride. Yeah, they've got TDRs and dad's got a Tenere. And so they're all bike people, but they're not in the racing industry. And they threw me a lump of cash and said, reorder all the parts, reorder everything. We've got to get you back on the road because we love the idea of what you're doing. So I nearly fell over in the workshop. Like I started to get tears in my eyes again. I'm thinking I went from not knowing how we're going to do it to we can actually do this again. And I actually said to him, you got to give me a minute because I don't even know how to answer you. I'm like, are you sure you want to do this? He's like, absolutely I do. So yeah, I mean, he's one of the nicest blokes I've ever met in my life. Small company. He's not some massive big corporate company with shareholders. It's a family-owned business, and he's willing to help. And he wants to come to the races and watch everyone ride. He's going to travel around and watch rounds of the Pro Max and come to whatever supercrosses and whatnot he can get to. And just because they're bike enthusiasts and they're in a position where they could help and they liked what we're doing. And it was a similar story with Hex Industries. They're a new business in like the civil plumbing world. They're fresh and they're still willing to help us out.
Yeah.
So they don't even have a fully established business yet. They're still building their business and building their model, and they want to help. And like Topping Transport, our other sponsor, they're a small family-owned transport company. None of them are big corporate companies, but they all want to help and they all want to be a part of what we're trying to do.
Do you have any idea, who was behind it? Because, I mean, from what I understand, a lot of the specialty tools and parts were stolen. What's the benefit to someone that's not in the sport or in the game to be taking that sort of stuff?
So, yeah, I kind of went back and forth on the thought of this. Well, I never even come up with this thought in the first place, but someone said, someone's trying to stop what you're doing. Why would they take that stuff? So there was all WP tools working on cone valve suspension. All that was gone. The only stuff someone could realistically sell of what they stole was the power tools, some of the hand tools, and the like air tools. All that suspension stuff, I mean, boxes of shims, jet, the awning they stole off the side of the truck. All that's probably in a dumpster somewhere or stashed in the bush because we believe after looking at the footage that they were just young opportunists, opportunists out looking for something to break into and steal from, and they happened to stumble across the truck. They probably assumed there was motorcycles in there. Got in there was no motorcycles, so they basically took everything they could carry. There's a video of them with our quick shade across the back of the car, and there's two people hanging out a window each side of the car holding the quick shade across the roof. So you don't go very far like that.
Yeah.
So that makes me think they're local. I don't think it was some kind of industry thing targeting us to try and stop what we're doing. Anything silly. I think they stole everything they could carry, and then they probably figured out that half of it's worthless to them when they got home. Or, they probably picked up all these ball cap spanners and like they stole springs and cones and everything out of WP cone bar shops. They're going to look at that stuff and go, what is this? Throw it all in the bin. To me, it's worth thousands of dollars. So the other thing they stole is they stole like 4 ECUs, like GAT ECUs. They're blank. There's no map in them. So if they ever try and plug them in a motorcycle, the motorcycle won't run because they hadn't been programmed yet. So to us, that's like, over $5,000 worth
Gold.
of ECUs.
Yeah.
To them, they're probably using them as a doorstop or something, or a paperweight. Like, they'd have no value to them. They likely wouldn't even know what they were.
Yeah.
But to us, it costs a lot of money to replace.
And just the grief and the violation, that's got to be so hard to get past.
There was days where I didn't want to step into the back of the truck. It just made me. I felt sick. Felt like someone had touched my pride and joy. I didn't want to. I was like, I had to. So the first day, I had to fix the back door so the truck could be locked again, and I just felt sick touching it. I didn't want anything to do with it. It was like this thing I poured so much energy and passion into just got broken and violated. It was certainly a massive ride of emotions that I didn't know could happen. Yeah, and the situation we face now is there's footage of them and everything, but for the police to charge someone needs to come forward and ID them, which hasn't happened.
Yeah, or they have to get busted with the stuff, which is probably spread, like you sort of said.
Correct.
Some of it's been thrown out. And
all the power tools, I went through a stage where I was checking Marketplace every day for my power tools. You know how many power tools are on sale on Marketplace? Like, no battery, skin only, used once or twice. There's an entire Ryobi catalogue on there of that stuff. I'm like, how do I know which one's mine?
Yeah.
Like, I could be looking at any of these ads, and this could be the guy that stole it, and that could be my drill or my rattle gun, or how would I know? They, like, all the power tools were put in the truck the day before they were stolen. I never even had a chance to record the serial numbers off it. So I have no chance. I could be looking at the people that stole it. I could be looking at my tools on sale on Marketplace and I have no idea. So, yeah, that was a tough pill to swallow. There still is quite a bit of not tools, parts on back order that I've had to replace that we're still waiting on that I hope turn up for Canberra. We had to have an entire new awning made for the truck. Like, they stole a custom-made awning for that truck, which to them it's just a giant bit of canvas. Like, they're not going to do anything else with it. But I had to have that remade, awning walls. We've just picked all that stuff up. So,
did it have your branding on it?
No, so it's just plain blue. So the truck actually started out as the original Castrol KTM racing truck of Jeff Lease. Craig Anderson won his first Australian titles out of the truck. So it's got some pretty cool history. Kind of floated around with a few other race teams from there. There was a team called Top Gear from Victoria that had the truck for a while. It ended up in Tassie, and then it was the CRF only race team truck. And then last off, it ended up Ian Whiteman's Moto suspension truck that Joel Whiteman would ride out of.
Yep.
So it's got a bit of history. So there is a few awnings that will fit the truck. The problem is they say KTM or Honda on them. So the only plain one we had with no branding on it was the one that was stolen.
Oh, bugger, man. I feel for you. That's just, what, like you're trying to do something good and something positive. And, for that to happen, that's just gut-wrenching. On to something a little bit more positive. Let's talk about your riding and your racing career a little bit. How'd you actually get started in the sport? Obviously, you said your dad had a shop or a mechanic's business at least. Was that your influence to get started through your parents buying you a bike as a little kid?
Well, my grandfathers had bikes. My dad rode mainly enduro. Where we grew up, we were surrounded by bush, and we had tracks to ride everywhere. So my dad got me a Pee-wee 50 when I was about 6 years old. We joined what's called Junior Trials Mini Bike Club, which was actually a mini kind of club. Not long after that, my sister started to ride. And, we kind of took off into that whole mini bike family style of lifestyle. At the time, so my dad was a motor mechanic by trade, and at the time he was working in the coal mines. So my whole family were coal miners. They'd all get a trade, and they'd go into the coal mines. I'm the first boy not to ever go into a coal mine.
Oh, wow.
So, we raced. I was about 12 years of age when my dad got the opportunity to open a motorcycle workshop for a Yamaha dealer in the area at the time. And he ran that for years. That dealership ended up closing, and he moved the workshop out onto our own way it is now. I grew up racing, doing state titles somewhere in Australia every weekend. My sister and I with our parents, and same as every other motocross family growing up, you have all your other families that travel together and are friends, and you become friends with their kids, and the parents become friends, and it just becomes a whole lifestyle. And that's what we did. We didn't do family holidays to Disneyland. We didn't go to Bali. We didn't, do any of that stuff. We went motorcycle racing every weekend. And my dad used the shop as a way of funding us kids in the sport.
With your sister racing, is she older or younger than you?
No, so she's 3 years younger than me. So she started racing. Well, funny story. I was racing first, and I had a Lem 50 at the time with a Moto Marini engine in it, and I used to double her around the front yard. She somehow, I don't know whether she was trying to get off or what she was doing, she ended up stuck between the back wheel and the rear guard. Thankfully, she wasn't hurt, but somehow that made her want to get a bike and start riding too. Maybe she thought she could run me over or something, I don't know. But she started riding, and my sister had a natural ability on a motorcycle, but didn't take it seriously. I was the serious one. I wanted to train every afternoon. I wanted to go running. I studied all the technique books. I had Stephen Gall's books. I had, technique booklets and stuff from Lyndon Hefferman. I did training with local coaches. I rode every day until dark. My sister just came along and didn't really care much for results, but was naturally good and just won everything without caring. And it used to drive me mad. It used to drive me nuts. So as a kid, I won state titles and things. And then she got to the age of about 13, 14 and started to take it a lot more seriously. Physical training still wasn't her forte, but she would ride. And she progressed really quickly and got really fast because she come through the era where she had to race boys all the time.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's something to be said for that in its own. Yeah, it's awesome that there's so many. There wasn't as many girls involved back then either. Like, she was barely lucky if she was one of 3 girls in the whole of Lake Macquarie Motorcycle Club. So she raced what was called back then Pro Lights every weekend against the boys, and would go out in A and B Pro Lights and get podium finishes.
Yeah.
So she didn't race like against women until she turned 16. And she went out in the women's classes and would win. And then she realized how good she was and what she could do. Then she started to take it a lot more seriously. Then she started to work, and then sponsorship started to come, and it always still drove me mad that I'd have to work my backside off, train physically, riding, all the rest to come, 12th to 15th or something in the open class.
Yeah.
She would like ride, fight with her to go for a run, ride a bicycle or do something else, and she'd win by half a lap. So we spent a lot of time going to Victoria to race the Victorian state titles because Christy Gillespie was she was the KDM. She rode for GMR KDM back then, and she was Amy's biggest competitor. So we were always going to Victoria trying to chase Christy for someone to Amy to race against.
Yep.
Because she didn't have a whole lot of competition around Newcastle or New South Wales. So Christy would train, took it a lot more seriously. Amy would get a whole shot, leave for the first half of the race, gas out, and Christy would pass her. So then that made my sister realise, okay, if I want to win these things, I actually have to train. Then I believe it was Kawasaki at the time was bringing Catherine Prum she was a New Zealand rider who was winning like women's MXGPs at the time. They were bringing her to Australia to race against Amy and Christy because she wasn't really getting challenged anywhere else in the world either. So it was a pretty healthy time for women's motocross back then because the manufacturers would get involved and help the women. Like Christy would sit with the KDM race team. Catherine would sit with the Kawasaki guys and later Yamaha when she joined them. So the girls were getting a lot of help back then. It was a pretty cool time to be involved in that. It's probably been up until recently that the women have actually got that kind of support or attention again.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. So, did you guys sort of both go pro at the same time? Obviously, you're a little bit,
Well,
3 years older, but
I don't know that we necessarily called it going pro back then. You just started to race Pro MX and Supercross if you were lucky enough. So I used to ride a lot with Craig Henderson. I was kind of younger on 80s and 125s coming up, and we had a mutual friend that had tracks at the same time, and we would ride a lot together. And so I got and even like we rode at the local club together and everything back then. So I got a pretty cool front row seat at a lot of what Craig did from kind of his Honda days. And even as a kid from like Chad and Craig would come to every club day and everything when they were with like CDA Yamaha, and even when Chad was with Suzuki and whatnot before he left before to go to Europe. So we got a pretty good showing of watching those guys as kids and got a pretty cool thing to sort of model after. So once you just naturally got to a ability where you were winning club days, you were winning state titles, you just started to race Pro MX. It was called, so they didn't have the MX3 class back then. I believe it was called Trophy Cup or something originally, and then it changed to something else, and then before it became MX3. I did a few of those races. I was like 7% body fat and 85 kilos. So I was pushing my luck on a 250. So I got on a 450 pretty early. Started racing in the open class, or what they call MX1 now. Yeah, and my sister raced the 250 in the women's. So we kind of did it as a family. Amy was one of the first women to ever get a supercross license in Australia. Back then it was Paul Broomfield, who would run all the supercross endorsements, and he gave Amy a supercross license, and she would go out and race the men in supercross.
Oh, that's unreal.
So yeah, I don't want to say it hasn't been done since, because I believe Megan Rutledge did it.
Few and far between, though, for sure.
Yes, yeah. I'm not sure if any current girls have done it. I'm sure someone will correct me if I'm wrong, but there hasn't been a lot, that's for sure. Yeah, and then I kind of grew into doing Pro MX and Supercross. It was a pretty cool time back then my first Supercross event, Supercross Masters, and those were a pretty good event. They had junior Supercross, they had C grade Supercross. It was more accessible for juniors and amateurs back then than what it probably is now, which also led to a lot less downtime during the day. When you go to Supercross now and there's those breaks of like 4 hours during the day when nothing happens.
Yeah.
Back then it was they had 80s and C grade classes. So you would progress from that into racing the pro class. So we did that, and then got into race. Then it turned into one Chad Reed had involvement in it. They called it Super X. We raced that, and then kind of got to a point where I wanted to actually buy a house and get married and do all that adult stuff. And the places I was getting didn't really pay me enough to do any of that. And also kind of hard to go to a bank and say, hey, if I crash tomorrow, I'll get nothing, but can I have $500,000 to buy a house? They march you back out the door. So I decided I had to work a bit harder and make money that way.
Yeah. Did you do it all as a privateer, or did you race for teams during your racing career?
No, so I was always a privateer. My sister got supported through Suzuki, but she got supported through Suzuki, and we got access to the Suzuki team for help with parts and certain stuff, but we still had to do everything on our own. Yeah, I was on Yamaha race plans and whatnot. I did start to get Kawasaki's and then Hondas, but I was already starting to move into a test role with ADB by that stage, by the time I started getting free bikes.
Yeah. So were you able to make money racing though? Like, it was a different era. I had Cam Taylor on the podcast, and he was sort of saying that you were able to race up to 20 Supercrosses a year. Back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and they paid pretty good, and even local races paid money a lot of the time. Through your riding career, were you able to make money from racing?
I was able to make a few hundred here, there from. I was not finishing high enough up in Supercrosses, so I believe these days pretty well everyone that makes the main event in like MX1 gets something. It wasn't always that way, so I never made anything from Pro MX or Supercross, but like open events and things would pay maybe 500 or 600 for first, something like that. I could get a little bit of money here and there from that. So back then at the end, we also had New South Wales Stadium Cross Series where you could earn some prize money there. We had a New South Wales Supercross Series as well. So you could earn some cash here and there through that. So to be honest, my sister actually made better money than I did because she was on a contingency plan through Suzuki.
Yep.
And I don't know if they knew how well she was going to do before they signed her up for that. But
they're the best deals.
Yeah, she got paid pretty for a 17-year-old girl that lived at home and didn't have any bills. She was able to stash a fair bit of cash in her sock drawer.
Oh, that's awesome. What do you think when you look at your racing career, and then you look at the sport today and the riders that you work with, and just the state of the sport? Like, how do you view the state of motocross and supercross today?
It's different. I feel like riders probably even expect more these days than they did back then. I get a lot of guys say to me now, oh, I'm not going to race Pro MX anymore, and I don't get anything from it. And I'm like, I never lined up for a single race in my life to get anything from it other than my own enjoyment or my own satisfaction of achieving a goal or doing better. So that one's a weird one to me, and that's been said to me quite a bit recently, which confuses me a little. I mean, back then too, we had to qualify.
Yeah.
I think the only class that you really have to qualify now for is the MX3 class. I mean, back then you had to either be ranked as a national A grader to get a surefire entry, and then if there was any spots left, they would take entries from B graders, and you had no chance of getting an entry if you're a C grader. There might be one or two B graders if you're lucky got a spot because the grid was full of A graders. So that's changed a bit, and every person, to my recollection, was there for nothing other than to try and prove themselves or race or get better. Like, yeah, fuel was a lot less back then, and costs were probably less. Yeah, the costs are probably hurting us these days.
I mean,
But
I think most riders these days at an entry, if they're racing Pro MX and Supercross, their programs have got to be costing at least sort of $100,000 a year by the time they factor in transport and bikes and
absolutely,
yeah.
absolutely.
So what sort of was it costing you back during your career to race?
To be honest, that's probably a better question for my dad. I was always fortunate enough my parents wanted to be involved and would help.
Yeah.
But so I'd get Yamahas on race plans and everything at one point, but my dad would pay for one and I'd pay for the other. He'd pay for fuel. Like, I was paying for entries at one point, and I remember paying for a specific entry where I was going through my ashtray and my high ace fan and everything to find the last dollar for this entry fee. Managed to scrape it together, paid it, and then went, I don't even have money for fuel to get there. And my dad's like, it's all right, I'll pay for that. Let's go. So, like, he would pay for the van, the fuel. So I was fortunate enough, Dad never cut me off. My parents loved racing and they were part of it with us my whole life. Like, if I said I wanted to go and race tomorrow, my parents and my wife would probably agree with him that that's a dumb idea and I shouldn't do it. But my dad would load the truck up, he'd get out his credit card and say, let's go and do it. So I've had their support with everything I've wanted to do. Like, I had to have their support to do this whole thing with our race truck, otherwise it wasn't going to work. And straight away, my parents were like, okay, let's do it. So when it's come to racing, they've always been involved, which has made things a lot easier for me. But I mean, my dad has this joke where he says to everybody, you stand in his garage and there's like 3 shelves the full length of a double garage long, lined with trophies. And he claims that every one of those trophies cost him 10 grand. And look, he's probably not wrong.
Yeah.
But it was a hell of a childhood, and it was an awesome way to grow up. I hope that I can be as good to my kids as my parents were to me. Yeah, it was. I wouldn't change it for anything. I know it cost my parents a lot of money. Like, my mum, when me and my sister stopped racing, my mum got a pool. She got a new kitchen. They refenced their whole property and repainted the entire house and built an outdoor area. And my dad bought a Monaro.
Yeah.
So
everything they sacrificed over the years.
So that's what they were able to afford when we stopped racing. So that kind of probably shows you what they were spending for me and my sister to race every year.
Yeah, but I bet you they wouldn't swap it back for anything.
Absolutely not. Like, my parents were involved in running like Lake Macquarie Motorcycle Club. My dad was vice president. My mum was treasurer for 15 odd years and everything. Like, they were fully invested in the sport. Yeah, they wouldn't change it. Like, we often sit around reminiscing and stuff about it now, and they say they wouldn't change a thing. And it also kept me and my dad really close. Like, I think the first race I ever did when my dad wasn't there was like a stadium cross race. I was probably like 35 or 36, and I crashed and ended up in hospital with broken wrists and broken arm and damaged my kidneys. And my dad was like, see, that's because I wasn't there. Yeah, so he'd support me tomorrow if I wanted to race again. My mum would think I was an idiot, but she'd let it happen. Yeah, even my wife would tell me I'm an idiot, but she'd let it happen.
So other than your role as a test rider, do you still swing a leg over a bike and would you line up like and race vets or do, the Vet Pro MX race or anything like that?
So I did get back into do some training a couple of years ago and was doing a few local vets races and things, and me and Diggs, Danny Anderson and Craig Anderson, we had a few good times racing each other and a couple of good battles, and it was pretty cool for us 3 to get on the track and have some fun together again. Since then, I've kind of been invested into this, so the fitness has dropped off, the lack of bike time has caught up. I would have liked to probably done some like the vets round at the end of the year, but my role with what I'm doing now, I don't know if I could do it and just do it and come 10th or something, and I'd need to do it and be fully invested and train for it and have a proper go, and I don't have the time. Uh, and to be honest, my days at the moment doesn't even give me the energy to
I can
physically
imagine.
be able to train to do that. So it's not a realistic goal or a need for me at the moment, and things would seriously derail very quickly if I was to, yeah, have a crash and get hurt right now.
Definitely. So moving forward, then, what's your goals and ambitions? Like, obviously, your focus is now on the race team and the business. So what's
Yep.
next for Matt Boyd and everything that you've got going on?
Well, first we've got to get through this year without running out of money. But yeah, we'll get through this year, see what kind of results we can build, what sort of following we can build. Ideally, I want to build on it every year. Like, your CDRs and your Honda racing team, they didn't start out like that. They didn't turn up first day in a semi. They built. They won races. They built their credentials. They got sponsors and they built. So I know it's a pretty big goal, and saying it almost feels like sometimes when I say it, I feel like saying to myself, "Come on, mate, you're having yourself on." But I mean, an end goal would be to end up like a team like that one day. That would be amazing. Going to happen? I don't know. We'll just take each year as it comes and try and build from the year before, and we'll keep going and see where we end up. I mean, I think I have the skills and the mechanics and the help and the people around me to build a pretty awesome program that can win this year and plenty more years into the future. I've pretty well been a student of this sport my entire life. I've learnt lessons in just about every avenue of this sport and had some kind of dealings with every avenue of this sport possible. So I feel like I'm pretty well rounded and I'm a pretty good candidate to succeed in this role. But it is a very tough role, and there's been plenty of other people that should have and didn't succeed in this industry and in what we're trying to do. So I've kind of got to be realistic and not move too far ahead before we actually do something. So yeah, the big thing is to move forward in this kind of role or this industry is you need help and you need sponsorship, because I'm not a millionaire and I can't throw $1 million of my own money out every year. So we need something like that to progress every year, and I hope we find it. Whether we find it is another story, but we'll search for it. We'll keep trying to build. I don't think there'll be a lack of winning for us. It's just it takes more than that to succeed in our industry, unfortunately.
Yeah. So if we look at say, move ahead to December 2026, what would be your measure of success for this year?
If we can sit in December this year and all our riders are happy and healthy and had a good year, with everybody has either put in their 100% effort, then I'll be happy. So I don't necessarily need to win anything to say that that's a success. If they all get to the end of the year and say, "Thank you, we love this year, it was amazing, we, learnt," if I can give them all something to carry into the rest of their careers or however far they choose to go in this sport, then I'd call that a success. Ideally, I'd want to go again bigger and better next year, but I think a success is making everybody happy and enjoy this year around us and learn and try their hardest.
I like that answer. Before I let you go, Matt, is there anyone that you'd like to give a shout out to or to thank?
Probably my entire family for wanting to back me in this situation, and everybody that has trusted me to come on board what I'm trying to do. I've got riders on this program this year that have turned down paid offers with other teams just because they want to be with me. So that was very humbling and made me feel like I had to push and make this happen. If they're turning down money just to be on my bikes, that kind of got my backside into gear. So I'm very humbled and thankful for that, as well as everybody who's come on board and helped, like the sponsors of VHA Lawn Care, Hex Industries, and Topping Transport. Without them, we wouldn't have got back on the road. This would not have happened at all. We still need help to be able to get through the rest of the year, but they've got us going. So everyone that trusted me, come on board, offered us help. Yeah, there's a lot of people that need to believe in me for this to happen. So I think, massive thanks to all of them, but especially the family, because they've put up with me riding every wave of emotion possibly, going mad, trying to build this truck, the late nights, trying to get 24 hours of work done in 12 on this truck, all my friends that have helped. It's been one hell of a project, and there's a lot more people involved than just me, so it doesn't happen without everyone.
And it's just starting, mate, and I think they believe in you for a reason. So I think you can.
Yeah, well, let's hope so.
Yeah. Well, I really appreciate you coming on for a chat, man. I've really, really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to catching up with you throughout the race here as well.
Yeah, perfect. It'd be good to hang out and share some stories around the track.
Thanks, Matt. All right, that brings us to the end of this episode. We've got some amazing guests lined up to come on the pod this year, so you guys know the drill. Subscribe to Mental for Moto on your favourite podcast platforms so you don't miss out on future shows. Massive thanks to Matt Boyd for joining me for a chat today, and to our partners for this episode, Fastline Suspension, Southeast Pools, Iro Helmets, Wolf Building Compliance, Ultimate Toy Haulers, and the February sponsor of the Mental for Moto motocross and supercross wall calendars, O'Donnell Motorcycles. And most of all, thanks to you guys for listening. On behalf of Mental for Moto, I've been your host, Pete Wolf. Until next time, see ya.